Hi there, smart drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about rules of the roadway, general rules, major road over minor road, straight through over turning, right turning traffic over left turning traffic. Stick around, we'll be right back with that information. Hi there, smart drivers. Welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about right-of-way rules. This will help you to drive safer, more predictably, more responsibly, and help you to pass a road test if you understand rules of the roadway and how they operate and who has the right-of-way to go. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as many people would like to think in terms of, major road over minor road, straight through over turning, and right turning traffic over left turning traffic. It gets more complicated with right hand or two-way stops, four-way stops, traffic lights, advanced greens, and those types of things. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. All phases here. Carrie's tuning in from Minnesota. Anwar, hello, and just let us know where you're tuning in the world, what class of license you're working towards, when your road test is, and if you passed a road test in the last couple of weeks, congratulations on doing that. That's really awesome. And Smart Drive Test helps new drivers get a license, veteran drivers to remain crash free, and CDL drivers to start a career as a truck or bus driver. So if you're new here, consider subscribing as well. Hit that thumbs up button and leave us a comment, especially if you're watching on the replay. More than happy to get to your comments and help you out. Rich, tuning in from frigid Maine. How cold is it in Maine, Rich? Oh, you just said that now. I feel cold. Edith is here from Kingsville, Ontario. Love Kingsville. Awesome. First time I rented a Sea-Doo there, one of those old ones, that you had to stand up on with the handle. Not the new ones that you sit down on like a Ski-Doo. It was a little more interesting. Anwar passed my full G last couple of weeks ago. Awesome. Ron passed my test in Minnesota last week. Congratulations. I'll just call you Dash. It'd be a little bit easier. I'm sorry, I might probably mispronounce your name. Maxie's here as well, so lots of people tuning in. And without further ado, we're going to get over to the presentation and get that out of the way. And then, so I do a presentation for about 15-20 minutes, and then after the presentation, I answer questions. Any questions that you have about passing a road test, CDL, starting a career as a truck or bus driver, or defensive driving. And just as a definition of defensive driving, I'm getting the sense, it's funny how you do this for a long time and you bandy around these terms of defensive driving. And I'm gonna save this discussion a little bit more for question and answer period. But what is defensive driving? What do people think of when I say defensive driving? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that and your feedback, because I'm endeavoring this year to do a lot more marketing and extending my reach. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think of what you're thinking and the questions that you're asking. And when I say defensive driving, what does that mean to you? Okay. Rich, we had a couple of snow a couple of days ago, and it did not go above freezing. So when you say freezing, Rich, are you saying 36 degrees Fahrenheit, or are you saying something colder than that? Dash, watching these videos helped me pass. I'm so glad that we could help out. I would like to know some ways to keep calm behind the wheel. Okay, Dash, we'll definitely talk about that. And as well, the live stream is fairly busy. They get 30, 40, 50 people on here at a time. So if I don't get to your question, certainly type your question again in the chat, and I will get to it as best I can. As well, Super Chat is available, and that highlights your question. I'm just saying. Not, you don't have to, but it's definitely an option. Maxie, how do you define distracted driving? What counts as distracted and what does not? Okay, that's another big question for us. So we'll leave that for question and answer period. Maxie, and we'll definitely discuss that in the question and answer period, that and distracted driving and defensive driving. We'll talk about those two things. All right, so let's head over here. So you can be right or you can be dead right. There are people out there that believe that they have the right of way, and if they have the right of way, they are going to go regardless of who has the right of way. They don't care. There's a pedestrian crossing and I have the right of way. I have the green light. People think that because they have the green light, they have the right of way to go, which is not true, because green light means go if the way is clear. There's always that caveat. If you look at driver's manuals, that's what it says. It says green means go if you have the right of way. Yeah, sorry about that. My apologies, pushing the wrong button there. There we go. Okay, so if you're new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I do have a PhD in legal history, study of policing, prisons, and courts, and my expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic, oddly enough. I became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997, and most of my experience has been with teaching people how to drive trucks. I have done a lot of cars as well, and I've worked as a driver rehabilitation specialist, so I've worked with people who had a debilitating injury and then returned to driving, and oftentimes had to learn how to drive with hand control. So I helped with that as well too. And while I was going to university in Australia at the University of Melbourne, I drove for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there. So I have experience in driving coaches as well. New video this week. Before Christmas, I did a live stream on the story of Smart Drive Test, how Smart Drive Test got started 4 years ago, the journey that I've had in the 4 years, and so I thought that I would dig that out of the live stream because as you may or may not know, live streams on the channel kind of sit there and then they kind of slowly die on the YouTube channel. So I pulled it down, I edited it, I added a lot of B-roll to it, and I think it's a pretty good story. And at the end of it, I have some really motivational stuff to say to you about achieving your dreams. I know that for some of you, getting your car license may seem like a big deal right now, and it definitely is. But if you do the work, you show up, you can do it, and that's what happened with the YouTube channel. I showed up, I did the work, I was consistent in doing the work, and the channel was successful. So definitely have a look at that video, and the path to success is not always straight, but if you're consistent, you will eventually get success, and the only thing between you and success is time and space. All right. This is the overview video that you want to see, and I haven't seen Corey show up yet, but if you want to have a look at this, just go into the search on the Smart Drive Test channel and look at rules of the road, right of way. This will give you an overview. Goes into much more depth than what I'm going to go into tonight. This is basically just kind of an overview of stuff that I'm going to talk about. So definitely have a look at that video. And as well, this week I put up a GIF on the community tab. This video here with the car driving through the intersection and the pedestrian was crossing and the light changed and the driver basically charged the pedestrian. I'm not sure, he missed the pedestrian by a couple of inches. So those types of things, that's what I'm talking about in terms of right of way. Who has the right of way? And some people will determine that they have the right of way regardless of who's right or wrong. And as one of my favorite sayings on the channel, one of the same things that I say again and again is, you can be right or you can be dead right. And sometimes, avoiding a crash, avoiding an accident is simply a matter of you taking your foot off the throttle, pausing for a couple of seconds or waiting for a couple of seconds, and then carrying on with your day. All right, so two-way stops are different from four-way stop signs. Two-way stops, the major road has the right of way over the minor road, so you have to wait for the traffic on the major road to clear before you can proceed. Straight through traffic has the right of way over turning traffic, so if you want to turn left and there's vehicles on the other side of the intersection who want to proceed straight through, you have to wait until that vehicle proceeds straight through. Obviously, if you're turning right and another vehicle is coming straight through the intersection, you can proceed, and you can both turn left at the same time at a stop signed intersection, a two-way stop signed intersection, if the traffic on the major road is clear. And of course, you have to give way to cyclists, pedestrians, and other vulnerable road users who might be using the intersection. So that can be a little bit tricky. Most of the time, you're going to find two-way stop signs at downtown areas and residential streets and those types of things, because a lot of the roadways will be deemed major thoroughfares through the suburb, through the section of town, and then others will be minor roads, and you have to figure out which are the minor roads and which are the major roads. And for the purposes of your road test, they are going to take you on some of these roads, and you are going to encounter two-way stop signs. Yield signs. These are becoming less and less common at conventional intersections, T-intersections, and cross streets. Most of the time, you're going to find yield signs at slip lanes, right turning lanes, on entrances to freeways, and at roundabouts, which are beginning to become more popular in our driving landscape. Same rules as two-way stop signs. However, the first person to arrive goes first, and the person on the right, if you're not sure about the four-way stop sign. As well, if the four-way stop sign is busy, then what's going to happen is the cross traffic is going to take turns. So one road is going to go, and then the other road is going to go. So if you're not sure about this, one of the things that I suggest to you in terms of four-way stop signs, and you're having difficulty with four-way stop signs, is to just go down to a four-way stop sign and stand there for 15 minutes and watch how the traffic moves through the intersection. That will be one of your best education. One of the best ways to educate yourself about how to proceed through a four-way stop sign. All right, four-way stops. So we just talked about all of that. I got ahead of myself. Apologies about that. I got ahead of the four-way stops there. All right. Okay, so freeways, on-ramps, acceleration lanes, continuity lines, gap, match speed, and adjust speed. And one of the other things that I don't have on here in terms of merging onto a freeway safely is as you're coming out onto the on-ramp, which is the curved part, and then you get onto the straight part, and you'll know that you're on the acceleration lane because the white line, at least in North America, the white line will go from solid to dotted, and that's the continuity line. So you want to be looking for your gap, and you want to aim for that gap. If you can look for that gap and see that gap and aim for that gap, that's going to allow you to be able to adjust your speed accordingly so that you can hit that gap. The other thing you want to be doing is you want to have your signal on as soon as you come out on the on-ramp, get onto the acceleration lane and get going. And the reason for that is because you need to match the speed on the highway or freeway. At least you need to be at the posted speed limit. If it's 60 miles an hour, you need to be doing 60 miles an hour when you move out onto the highway, because I can guarantee you that the traffic flow, unless it's congested, is going to be higher than what the posted speed limit is. So you need to be at least that speed. All right, and continuity lines. Continuity lines are twice as wide and half as long as most dividing lines. Continuity lines tell you as the driver, if they are on the left side of your vehicle in North America, and for those of you who drive on the right, continuity lines tell you that the lane you are in is either going to end or exit. So take note of continuity lines, especially when you're trying to figure out how to merge safely onto highways and freeways. And the other thing about merging onto freeways, the onus of responsibility of merging onto a highway or freeway is on the merging driver. It's not on the people on the highway. I do say in many of the videos that I have 2 or 3 videos here about merging onto highways and freeways safely, that it is a team sport, that if you're on the highway or freeway and you can move over, please move over. If you're on the highway or freeway and it's simply a matter of you taking your foot off the throttle for 3 or 4 seconds so you can slow down 2 or 3 kilometers an hour, then do that as well and help the person out so that they can merge onto the roadway. And again, this comes back to people who think that they absolutely have the right of way. I don't have to do a darn thing if I'm on the freeway. Well, if you're involved in a crash, what is that? How much time out of your life is that going to take? How much time, energy, and money if you're involved in a crash when you're trying to merge safely onto a freeway? All right, so right of way, 3 top reasons for crashes. Speeding. Speeding does not lend itself to an easy definition. Speeding is driving above the posted speed limit, driving faster than me. For example, I'm driving down the road at 50 kilometers an hour, which is the posted speed limit, or 30 miles an hour, and somebody passes me doing 60 kilometers an hour, or 60 kilometers an hour, which is 35, 40 miles an hour. So are they speeding because they're keeping up with the traffic flow and going faster than me? Are they going faster than the traffic flow? That's another definition of speeding. And then are they exceeding the speed limit that's safe for the conditions of the roadway, which is the catch-all speed limit? So speeding is one of the reasons why we get into crashes. The other one, the second one, is failing to yield. And I would actually say that failing to yield is the number one reason why people are involved in traffic crashes. Failing to give up the right of way. They believe that they have the right of way and they hold that line and they will not give up, and they're involved in a crash because they simply will not take defensive action. They will not move out of the way or slow down or whatever needs to be done. And then finally, the number one, another of the top three reasons for being involved in a traffic crash is people follow too close. They fail to manage space well around their vehicle and allow themselves a buffer between themselves and other traffic on the roadway. And this happens a lot more than people think. And following too close in combination with speeding is going to get you into trouble when you're driving and result in a traffic crash. All right, so case study. One of the questions that I asked on the community tab is, you are waiting at a two-way stop to turn left. On the far side of the intersection, there are two vehicles turning right. What is the correct right of way? 75% of people knew the correct answer. Some people did not, unfortunately. So if you're sitting at a two-way stop sign and there are vehicles on the other side of the intersection that are turning right and you want to turn left, those vehicles on the far side of the intersection have the right of way. It's not a take-turn thing. The vehicle's turning right. Again, coming back to the general rules of intersection, major road over minor road. So you have to wait for the vehicles on the major road to clear, right turning vehicles over left turning vehicles. So those two vehicles that are turning right on the far side of the intersection have to go. And I get this a lot because I live in a residential area and I go down to the end of my street where it's a two-way stop sign. And lots of people on the far side of the intersection who are turning right will wave me through when I'm going left. And it annoys me because it's like, please figure out the road rules. All right, so obeying road rules, and we can talk more about road rules and right of way and those types of things. Set up predictable traffic patterns. So when you have predictable traffic patterns and you look down the road farther and observe better, you can be proactive in your driving. You're looking farther down the road to locate controlled intersections. And when I say controlled intersections, it's stop signs, yield signs, or traffic lights. You can locate turning lanes. You can look for rubberneckers and out of the ordinary things. So for example, pedestrians walking out and jaywalking on the roadway. And I'll just ask everybody to leave a comment whether they know what jaywalking is or not. You can figure out, whether there's a crash, whether somebody's looking at something they shouldn't be looking at, whether they left their signal on and they don't exactly know where they're going. They're on their phone. They're distracted somehow. Okay? You know the characteristics of the vehicles on the road, and we know that there's a lot of different traffic, road users that make up traffic on the roadway. Pedestrians, cyclists, motorcycle riders, trucks, cars, buses, trams and trolleys in some cities. So there are a lot of road users as well as people on scooters and other mobility devices and those types of things. All right, so think about that. And then depending on the time of year, the different traffic patterns are going to change according to the traffic that's on the roadway. You can see here there's a picture of a snowmobile in a lot of rural areas in northern Minnesota and Maine, where Rich is. Places in southwestern Ontario, there's going to be a lot of people on snowmobiles in the wintertime who are going to be driving across roadways and alongside roadways and whatnot. So know that these people are going to be there. This is not unpredictable in the wintertime, and so this is all going to set up how you're going to drive and how you're going to respond to other road users and share the roadway with them, okay? So good luck on your road test. If you passed your road test in the last couple of weeks, congratulations. If you have one coming up, good luck on that. And we'll talk more about right-of-way rules. We'll also answer any questions you have. And talk about both right-of-way rules, who has the right-of-way on the roadway, why you can be right or you can be dead right in terms of road rules, because as I say, road rules no more prevent traffic crashes than criminal law prevents crime. So it's a very blunt tool to increase traffic safety. Yes, it makes traffic predictable when people follow the rules, but as we know, not all people follow the rules, and when people don't follow the rules, they become unpredictable. And when they become unpredictable, this often leads to traffic crashes and you being involved in an accident. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of this. Joe Ketter, I get nervous. Sometimes I can't see if I am turning in the right lane. So when you're turning in the right lane, Joe Ketter, are you turning right? You're turning right, obviously. So basically what you need to do, and this comes down to right-of-way rules. If you cannot see and you're trying to go around on a right-hand turner and there's something obstructing your vision, whether there's trees and bushes along the side of the roadway or there's pedestrians or whatnot, simply slow down and then creep up until you can see. You can do that. That's totally acceptable. Because if you can't see and you don't know whether it's clear to go or not, then you need to slow down and figure out when it is safe to go, because you don't want to just charge into an intersection. Okay, Dash, I have some people here who are driving like 5 miles an hour on a residential road. It gets me mad, but I stay calm and go with the flow. And that's essentially what you can do, Dash, because you can't go until the person in front of you goes. It's like at a traffic light. I see people who pull right up on the bumper of the car in front of them, and then they try to go as soon as the light turns green. You can't go until that car in front of you goes. That driver in front of you goes. Okay? My friend Tim at Drive Smart BC, if you have any questions about road rules and legislation and those types of things, Tim is excellent at that. So check out his website, his stuff there at Drive Smart BC. And especially if you're here in British Columbia, you have any questions about any of that, really awesome stuff. And Tim says many people have right-of-way problems. Most have no clue that through traffic may have to yield to a left-turning vehicle at an intersection. Yeah, it's so true. And as I say, to prevent crashes, to make your life less adversarial, that you're not getting the finger from other drivers and those types of things, sometimes you just have to let off the throttle, and sometimes you just have to let the other road user go, especially if they're determined that they're going to go, that they have the right of way or whatever. And the other thing, my pet peeve is when I'm at a two-way intersection and I'm trying to turn left and the other person across the intersection is turning right and they're waving me on to go, right? And most of the time they're adamant. You've just got to go, but you've got to be very careful about that as well, because you have to know that you are not in the right of way. You are going ahead of that vehicle, and so you need to be very careful when you proceed with that. All right, Rico, how do you approach a red light with an advanced green arrow? Do you have to stop? No, not if there's a green arrow, Rico. Then that way you have the right of way. Obviously, if you have a green arrow, the intersection has to be clear. Green means go if the way is clear. So you have to give way to any other road users that might be in the intersection of those types of things. But if you have a green arrow, that means that you can proceed on your right turn. 4, they tell you to go when you are feeling safe to do so, and if no one is coming, turn right. Okay, there's something missing from that. Okay, Hall phase, how does an average schedule look for truck driving? It depends what kind of work you're doing, Hall phase, about what your schedule would look like, because there's so many different kinds of truck driving, whether you're running vans and you're running flat deck, you're running local, you're running regional, you're running long haul. It really depends on what kind of work you're doing. Epic, when I was driving on a freeway like I-78 in Clinton, New Jersey and Easton, drivers in the left lane seem to drive below 65, not safe in the left lane. Curves right, then left sign speed. Yeah, Epic, you're never going to get over that problem. People, drivers get upset about that and have been for a long time since we've had multi-lane roadways. And unfortunately, you're going to get people in the fast lane out in that left-hand lane who are insisting on doing the posted speed limit. I know on Vancouver Island, where Tim lives, the Patricia Bay Highway, there is nothing that some people love better than to get out in the hammer lane and do the posted speed limit. And it drives the rest of people crazy because they're trying to pass and get ahead and those types of things. And it just doesn't happen, and it just drives people crazy. And some people do it on purpose. I know that for a fact. There are drivers who get in the hammer lane, they get out in the left fast lane, and they will sit there and do the posted speed limit. And it's dangerous because other people have to pass. It's not so dangerous on a multi-lane road where you have 2 or 3 lanes going in the same direction. But on a 2-lane road, that is dangerous because then vehicles pile up behind you and those vehicles have to pass, and passing on a 2-lane road is dangerous. So it's better if you can try and keep up with the traffic flow a little bit. And I encourage people after they get their license to keep up with traffic flow because you're much more predictable than you would be otherwise. Jane, how long does your... All right, Dash. A car ran me off the road into the ditch because he got mad. Was driving safely because it was slick. Yeah, and sometimes, unfortunately, that's going to happen. Yeah, and what Jonathan says, I'm just going to reiterate what Jonathan says about road rage. Yes, don't unlock your doors. Don't take pictures of them. Do not talk to them. Do not roll down your windows. Simply carry on with your way. And do not drive home either, okay? If they're going to persist and they're going to drive after you, then drive to a public area or drive to a police station, okay? Tim, Drive Smart BC. The courts have told me that I had better not bring a ticket for failing to keep right for trial if that driver was doing the limit. Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it, Tim. You know, these people are in the right. They can be in that left lane, even though we have regulatory signs. They are regulatory signs. Stay right unless passing. It's a regulatory sign. It means it's the law. And, you know, it's one of those pieces of legislation that there's just no way around it. That if somebody is insisting on being in the left-hand lane, if they're being in that speeding lane, and they're insisting on doing the posted speed limit, there isn't anything you can do with them. I mean, as a police officer in a police cruiser, I'm sure if you pulled up behind them and threw the lights on, that would probably scare the dickens out of them, and you would get them off the road. But I mean, there's just going to be another person who's going to do that. So it's kind of a futile exercise. You know, what do you do in terms of that? But unfortunately, it leads to road rage, leads to distracted driving, and people trying to pass and get around and those types of things, and creates unpredictable traffic patterns, and leads to why we get into trouble and whatnot. Okay. Mason, hello there. I passed my Exit G exam on Tuesday, so I'm sad to say my journey with you is done. I wanted to express my thanks for making such helpful glides for new and experienced drivers alike. Mason, so glad we could help out, and congratulations on passing your G test there. That's awesome. Now you have a full license and you're going to get cheaper insurance. That's really great that we can definitely help you out. And if you have any questions at all or anything that you're unsure of when you're in your driving career now, definitely stop back and ask us a question. Leave us a comment on one of the videos or whatnot. Always happy to help you out. And yes, I need to get back to you, and I'll do that during the week. Thank you so much for checking that with me. Hall phase, is lane splitting allowed in Canada? Hall phase, lane splitting, I'll just define what lane splitting is for people. In California, in Australia, in Britain, lane splitting is when traffic is sitting on a multi-lane road at an intersection and motorcycles come up between the cars and get out in front of the cars and then take off when the light turns green, because they accelerate faster, obviously. That's what lane splitting is called. Whether it's legal or not depends on the jurisdiction you're in, whether you're in the province or state. It's also part of the driving culture, okay? You have to understand that different places in the world have different driving cultures. Lane splitting is part of the driving culture. In Canada, it is not part of the driving culture. At least I don't know any province in Canada that does lane splitting. Maybe we just ask the smart drivers out there who are watching now whether you see motorcycle riders doing lane splitting where you live. And those of you watching on the replay as well, just let me know down in the comments whether you have motorcycles that do lane splitting and those types of things. And you know, the other question I'll ask as well, do you find lane splitting confusing? Does it kind of rattle you a little bit when you're sitting at the intersection and these motorcycles come up beside you and pull out in front at the front of the queue of traffic lined up waiting for the light to turn green? Okay. Huncho, do you recommend I get a beat up car for a couple of months after I get my license before I get the car I actually want? Get my license in 10 days and I got a free car from a family friend, but I was from a family friend. Okay, so what I just actually, interesting enough, Huncho, one of the things that I did today was I put up a story on the mobile for insurance. And we were talking a lot about insurance last week on the live stream. And I'm going to do a video about insurance for new drivers, because as we know, insurance for new drivers is incredibly stupid. One of the smart drivers was saying that he or she was paying almost around $500 a month for insurance. I mean, that's $6,000 a year. That's 6 times what I pay, and I'm not even a top driver. That's crazy amount of money for car insurance. One of the ways that you can reduce the cost of your insurance. Now, the first thing I'll say about car insurance, I'll just say this. If you buy a car that has a loan, so you go to a used car dealership or you go to a new car dealership and you buy a car that has a loan on it, now you have to put collision on it, because the financial institution that is loaning you the money wants to protect their investment. So if you get in a collision, they want to make sure that it gets repaired, so you have to put collision insurance on your vehicle. Collision insurance is twice as much as what your insurance would be if it was just PL&PD, public liability and property damage, which is the basic insurance, the basic insurance. So there's PL&PD, public liability, property damage. There's fire and theft. So if your car catches on fire, they'll fix it. If your car gets stolen, they'll replace it. And then there's collision. Collision is if you get into a crash, you run into a tree, the insurance company will pay to have it fixed or write it off. Collision insurance is the most expensive thing, the most expensive kind of insurance that you can buy. So what I recommend to you as a new driver, if you can afford it, if you can borrow money from your parents and pay them back as opposed to borrowing it from a financial institution, buy your $2,000 or $3,000 car, an old Honda or an old Toyota or something for the first couple of years. Buy an old car outright or borrow the money from your family so you don't have to borrow it from a financial institution, and then put absolute basic insurance on your car, public liability and property damage. That is the cheapest insurance you can buy, and that is one of the ways that you can get less expensive insurance for your vehicle, okay? And of course, the other thing is as a new driver, make sure that you shop around, okay? Because not all insurance companies are going to give you the same rate for your insurance as a new driver. So make sure you shop around as well, okay? Dash Epic. Okay, speaking of signs, is the no truck or bus sign with a red circle universal or not, because some roads in the Northeast United States only use the no truck sign in words? No, Epic, a no truck sign is a no truck sign. And in my years of driving truck, it wasn't on the route. So you were coming down a major route that you knew was a truck route, and then you would turn right or you would turn left, and as soon as you turned, there was the sign about a half a block down that it was a no truck route. So then now you're already on the route because you can't abort the turn, and then you got to go back out. And that happens a lot, unfortunately. So yeah, no truck routes can be a bit tricky, but it is more or less universal in terms of being in a lane on a multi-lane road where they'll have a circle and they'll have a truck and they'll have a cross through it that you can't be in that lane. So that tends to be fairly universal. All right. Dash, it's dangerous to drive in Wyoming. You drive 70 miles an hour on a normal road and 95 on the highway. Wow, that's high. Dash, I don't have insurance yet. My mom is helping me to find a cheap insurance. Yeah, that's one of the ways that you can reduce the cost of your insurance, Dash. Mortz, my friend had to pay a whole year insurance because he was a new driver. Some insurance would not let new drivers get a monthly payment. They want you to pay the whole year. Yeah, that's just crazy, Mortz. And if that's what you find yourself up against, that you have to pay the whole year insurance, not pay it monthly, go to a different insurance company. There are plenty of insurance companies around. Because, I mean, for some of you, I mean, that's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I mean, that's probably twice as much as some of you are going to pay for a motor vehicle. That's, that's crazy. That's all I can say is I really feel bad for you. Okay? Hall phase, is car insurance expensive because the government requires it? No, Hall phase, the only thing that the government requires, the only thing that you are required to have to license your vehicle, because you got to understand, you can't get licensed, you can't get a registration for your vehicle if you don't have insurance. Okay, you have to show proof of insurance before they will give you the tags for your car. At minimum, to license, to register, and insure your vehicle, you have to have public liability and property damage. That's the minimum. So, for example, public liability is that you are involved in a traffic crash and you severely maim somebody, and then they sue you for insurance money, and they sue you for $2 or $3 million. That's what public liability is. Property damage is, say for example, you get down the road, the vehicle goes out of control, and you drive into somebody's house. Okay, if you drive into somebody's house, that is property damage, and the insurance will cover that. At minimum, for car insurance, you go to a car dealership and you buy a car off the lot, and you take out payments where it's $600 a month for car payments. You then have to have collision. It's the same thing as buying a house and having a mortgage on it. You have to have house insurance as part of the condition of the loan on the vehicle. Okay. Carrie, recently I was tailgated and then someone else cut me off extremely closely for a short bit. Felt both cars were way too close. What is the best way to handle this situation? Carrie, it's difficult for me to say that because to comment on that because I really don't know that. But one of the things you want to do when you're being tailgated is you want to increase your following distance in front, because now you're driving for you and you're driving for the goofball behind you that's up on your bumper, right, and wants to park in your trunk. But essentially, just increase your following distance in front. Scan farther down the road, try and interpret traffic patterns and those types of things. Yes, people will try and cut into the space in front of you and they will try and take that up, but they won't be there for very long because they're going faster than you anyway. So I know it's a little bit different for those of you who are learning how to drive because you have to drive the posted speed limit in preparation for your road test, but these are the things you have to do. And as well, have a look here on the channel for the video on being rear-ended. That'll give you some tactics and techniques as well. And my friend Colin, how are you, my friend? Maxie, what influences insurance rates? Why do people under 25 pay way more than one age 25 or above? Maxie, the reason that people under 25 pay more for insurance is because statistics show historically that young people have more crashes. And this is the reason why in the last 30 years, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, they brought in the GLP program. Because young people were having so many crashes that they had to do something. Governments were forced to do something about it. And so governments brought in the GLP program, the GDL, graduated driver's license programs. Unfortunately, the GLPs and the GDLs, they're not working. The industry driving instructors, professional driving instructors know that it's not working. Unfortunately, we think and we believe that the government is shelving a lot of the studies that are showing that it's not working. But, there's no way that they could pull back from that. It's just the system that we're now stuck with. But young drivers are at a higher risk of being involved in a crash, and this is why their insurance rates are so high. But, I talked about this in other live streams as well. I mean, I'm a professional driving instructor. I teach people how to drive. I drive my own vehicle. I've never had a crash. I haven't had a speeding ticket forever, touch wood. And, I'm still not at the top of the insurance requirements. I'm in like the 75th percentile or something. It's pretty awful, what insurance companies are able to do and those types of things. I mean, especially, here in BC and those types of things. All right, Hancha, will a windshield with a couple of 2 centimeter pass an insurance inspection is like a 2003 or car that I live in Alberta, by the way. Usually, Hancho, cracks in the windshield or stone chips in the windshield will pass an inspection so long as the chips or cracks are not in the view of the driver. Generally, what you can do, you could go to a glass shop and just, that replaces windshields and just go in and say to them, listen, I got a couple of cracks and chips in my vehicle. Can you just come out and tell me whether it's going to pass an inspection or not? And they'll just have a look at it and they'll tell you that. Okay. Dash, there are drivers out there playing on their phones. Yes, there are. Yes, there are. There are distracted drivers for sure. Let's talk about distracted and defensive driving. Okay, so Maxi, distracted driving. Most of what's related to distracted driving is drivers on their phones while they're driving. Okay. However, distracted driving could be anything. It could be you eating a sandwich, having a drink, smacking the kids in the back seat, breaking up an argument, having an argument with your spouse, looking in the mirror, being distracted by the person who's tailgating you behind. Whatever it could be, you could be distracted from the task of driving. But most of the energies towards distracted driving are focused on phones. And I think it's only a matter of time before they bring in the textilizer. They did try in New York a couple of years ago. I did a video on it at that time. However, it fell flat. It invades people's privacy when police have access to your phones. But I think it's a matter of time before it comes. I just don't know what's going to happen in terms of distracted driving and whether it's, how we're going to move forward. My other question is, they release all of these studies, and I need to do some more research in terms of these studies and how these studies are done and those types of things. I mean, they put out all of these statistics about the number of crashes that occur because people are being distracted while they're driving and those types of things. I mean, the only way that they can tell is by going into somebody's phone records and figuring out whether the person was on the phone at the time of the crash. Were they on the phone? Did they just hang up the phone? Did they just dial the phone? I mean, how do we know all of that information? I mean, and the other thing about police reports is police reports aren't consistent. So how do we know that? How do we know that we have this huge spike in crashes that are due to distracted driving? And I mean, Tim might have some input into this as well. I mean, it's a very complex question. It's not something that lends itself to a simple explanation. But I mean, this is what authorities and experts are saying, that crashes, according to distracted driving, are going through the roof. And that's not surprising, because everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has their phone in their car, whether it's on a charger or whether it's on a holder or not. It's in their vehicle, right? And our phones provide so much information, not to mention the number of people who are in their cars with their phone listening to podcasts and listening to music and using it as a navigation device. People are going to be using their phones. So how is that different from using your phone, using your telematics, the big screen in the middle that's got all the navigation information on it, your stereo, everything else on it? I mean, all of that is distracting. So there's a lot of things that are distracting. All right. Hall face, why do people under 25 get into more accidents? My professional theory on why young people get into more accidents. Excuse me. Smart Tim, I would be cautious about statistics, as BC drivers are no longer required to report a crash to police. Investigations are not being done. And yes, that's exactly what I was just alluding to. What I was sort of saying is that traffic crashes, as Tim says, are not being reported to police. A lot of crashes, investigations are not being done, so we don't know the causes of crashes. So my question is, where are they coming up with this information? Where is the CAA coming up with this information? Where is ICBC coming up, and the other authorities, the MTO, Ministry of Transportation, the Department of Transportation in the States, and other authorities, the AAA? Where are these authorities getting this information from? And as Tim said, if traffic crashes are no longer being investigated by police departments, who's doing the investigation? Where is the information being come from? How is the information being gathered? What are the requirements? What are the parameters for gathering that information? I mean, that's, it raises a lot of doubts in terms of, the severity of distracted driving is causing crashes. I mean, is it causing more crashes than the legalization of marijuana? Is it causing more crashes than drink driving? Because we know that drink driving laws didn't work. So in response to that, the BC government has increased police powers. So now, if you're pulled over for drink driving, it generally doesn't go to court. You are generally convicted right on the side of the road by police. They tow your car. They suspend your license right on the side of the road. This is now how we're dealing with this because it wasn't working in the courts. So the big questions there. Maxie, should I lease, finance, or pay in cash for a new car? New or used car? What is your recommendation? Maxie is a new driver. My recommendation is to buy your car outright. Public liability, property damage insurance will get you the best deal for insurance. Angel, any tips on how to drive in the snow when the roads are icy? Yes, drive carefully. Follow the flow of traffic because most of the traffic is going to be going slower. So, easy on the brakes. Know that steering and braking are going to be two separate actions. And as well, before you come up to the intersection, slow down before you want to stop and then creep up to where you actually want to stop so you know where to get stopped and increase your following distance from other vehicles. Tim, most people are not going to tell ICBC that they caused a crash because they were busy texting or talking. Yeah, you think? You're absolutely right about that. Absolutely right about that. Hall phase, the police have too much power on our roadways. How do you figure that, Hall phase? Dash, drive slower, depends on how much you need to slow due to conditions. Stay calm and both hands on the wheel. Yes, absolutely. Great advice there. Mortz, you forgot to answer the other question. Why young people get into more crashes? The reason that they get into more crashes, Mortz, is because they simply don't have the experience to drive a car. Okay? They don't know how fast they can go around corners. They don't know how the vehicle responds in different situations. Most drivers, I would say probably 50%, and Tim may have an idea about this as well. I would say that 50% of people who drive cars have no idea how the ABS works or how it acts when you actually engage it. Young people don't know right-of-way rules. They generally tend not to let up. I know that when I was a young driver, I got into a crash going too fast on a curve on a gravel road. I drove too fast. I went off the road a couple of times because my speed was too fast. And the other reason that young people have more crashes is the 4Ds, what I call the 4Ds now. Drinking, driving, dating, and distracted driving. Okay? Young drivers, unfortunately, have all four of those things at the same time in their life. And they're all new experiences for young drivers. Okay? They're being introduced to alcohol when they're 19 or 20 years old. This is the time that you get your license. For most new drivers now, don't get their license when they're 16. Most young drivers don't get their license until they're 18, 19, or 20 years old. It's getting older and older. When I was young, the day I turned 16, I got my license. And anybody who is 40, 50 years old will tell you that. The day you turn 16, you got your license. It was a rite of passage. It's not a rite of passage anymore for young people to get their license because I believe that there's so much bureaucracy involved in getting your license that they're postponing it. And so now what's happened is because young people are postponing getting their driver's license, it's now lining up with when they start drinking and they start learning how to drink and they don't have any experience with drinking. Because when I drink, I know the mouthful when I've had too much. Young people don't know that. Okay? They drink to excess. In most cases, not in all cases. Dating. Okay? They're learning how to have relationships with other people. And unfortunately, when you're young, there tends to be a lot more drama with relationships. So you're dealing with that, and you're dealing with distracted driving. You're dealing with cell phones, telematics, all these electronic gadgetry in new cars. So you're dealing with those four things that are all brand new in your life because you don't have a lot of experience with all of those things. Like me, numerous relationships. I've had, 10 cars in my lifetime. I've driven truck. I have all this experience and able to how to deal with this. And because of all of that experience, I have situational awareness when I'm driving and I can say, oh, that's dangerous. Whereas a young person wouldn't have that sort of, dictionary of hazard situations that he or she could be involved in. All right. Maxie, turn right on a red during road test. What do you suggest? Okay, so Maxie, first of all, you can turn right on a red light. All right, after coming to a complete stop at the correct place at the intersection. And you can turn right on a red light so long as there aren't signs prohibiting it that say that you can't. If you're in New York City and the 5 boroughs, You can't turn right on a red light. Britain can't turn right, can't turn left on a red light because that's the same thing as they're driving on the other side of the road. So, but if you're not comfortable on a road test turning right on a red light, you don't have to. You can wait for the green. Okay? So know that. Dash, my dad is a cop and he is trying to make a difference on the road. He is a good guy. Awesome. And extend our thanks to your dad for helping out and keeping things safe on the roadway. Tim, unless you've been taught, most people don't know much about ABS being between beyond stomp and steer. I love that. I love that too. I'm gonna use that. Stomp and steer. That's really great. Excellent. And we do have a video here on the channel on ABS brakes, so have a look for that too. Go into the search on the Smart Drive Test channel and look for the ABS video as well. Okay. Dash, I waited until 18. My mom wanted me to get it at 16, but I'd rather wait until I'm 18. And you're a good example of what I was saying about Dash. And this isn't just in Canada and North America. This, in the United States, it's worldwide. Young people are not getting their license, and I would argue that it's because of the GLP programs. It's because of the GDL programs. There's too much bloody bureaucracy involved. And it's bureaucracy, unfortunately, that I do not believe is working. I don't believe that the GDL program is reducing traffic crashes on our roadways for young people. I don't. I simply don't. I think the only thing that it's done, and one of the reasons why it's reduced the number of traffic crashes with young people, is because young people are postponing when they're getting their license. That's it. Okay? So, that's what's happened. Mortz, when you get a violation like speeding during your GDL, do they add more time to your 2-year probation? Yes, they do, Mortz. You start over. Know that if you get a speeding ticket, I would need to check the details of that for sure, but I'm almost positive that your 2-year probation starts over if you get a speeding ticket in your novice phase. Carrie, when driving, what would you say are the most important things to see and interpret along the roadway so one is prepared to handle upcoming hazards correctly? Carrie, definitely just looking farther down the road, predicting traffic patterns, watching for pedestrians along the roadway, figuring out controlled intersections, interpreting what traffic patterns are, and managing your space well. My belief on defensive driving, and coming back to defensive driving, is that people fail to manage space well around their vehicles. And the number one place that they fail to manage space around their vehicle is in front. People are too close to the cars in front of them. And I was thinking about this the other day, that I tell people, even after you get your license, stop in traffic so that you can see the tires of the vehicle in front of you making clear contact with the pavement. That leaves about 1 vehicle space between you and the vehicle behind you. Everybody, almost everybody in traffic, if you watch them, when they stop in traffic, they pull right up to the bumper of the vehicle in front of them. And then they bump into the vehicle in front of them because the light turned green. They weren't watching the car in front of them, and then they took off. Or they're driving too close and the person in front slams on the brakes and you're into a rear end collision because you are too close to the vehicle in front of you. If you keep a buffer of space around your vehicle, and I know that's not always possible, most of the time you can, you are going to significantly reduce the chances of you being involved in a traffic crash. Rich, roundabouts improve the traffic flow. Yes, they do, Rich. And I am a huge advocate of roundabouts. I love roundabouts. First and foremost, as a person who lived on the corner of a very busy stop-signed intersection with Harley-Davidson motorcycles and jacked up 350 Fords, Chevys, and 3,500 Dodge Rams that were accelerating off the stoplight, it is incredibly noisy. And first and foremost, roundabouts reduce sound pollution, noise pollution in urban environments because people are not slowing down as much and they're not accelerating as hard as they would be from a complete stop at a stop sign intersection. Second of all, there are less points of conflict in a roundabout as in a conventional intersection, so there's less crashes. And then finally, roundabouts move more traffic per hour than a conventional stop sign intersection. So they're far superior to a 4-way stop sign intersection, a 2-way intersection, or whatnot. Okay? Angel, what would you do if your wheels kept spinning and you can't move because of ice. Take your foot off the throttle, Angel. Let the tires settle down, get traction, and then start again. If you can't go forward, you might have to back up if you're on snow and ice. Okay, but most of the time what happens is that when people are on snow and ice and they can't get going, they just keep spinning the tires. Well, what happens when you spin the tires is you heat up the ice, and when you heat up the ice, you melt it, you get a layer of water on top of the ice and snow, and it just makes it more slippery. So you need to stop spinning the tires and then really gently just feather the throttle to go forward. And if you can't get going forward, you might have to back up a little bit to get that traction again and then go again. All right? Maxi, recommend the speed when turning at a curb or at an intersection. Okay, so right turns, Maxi, you want to have sort of 8 to 12 miles an hour on a right turn, which is kind of like 10 to 15 kilometers an hour. On a left turn, depending on how big the intersection, you're going to be somewhere between 15 and 30 kilometers an hour, sort of, 12 to 20, 25 miles an hour, depending on how big the intersection is for turns. Curves, there's many curves. There's going to be an advisory speed. Slow down to the advisory speed if you haven't been on that curve before. Generally, you want to try and slow down before the curve, corner, or turn, and then slight power through the curve or corner. And watch the video, look for the video here on the channel on curvy roads, and that'll give you more information about that as well. Hall phase, I think people modify their cars so they make that noise very loud. Yes, some people do. Tommy, do you still think a roundabout when we're driving a bus through it? Oh, do I still like a roundabout when I'm driving a bus? Yes, I do still like roundabouts when I'm driving a bus. I'll tell you a funny story about that, Tommy. In Australia, when I was driving the V-Line bus line, which was out of Melbourne down to Ballarat and came back through Bacchus Marsh and a couple other little towns, there was a roundabout in Bacchus Marsh, and we had the 54-seater bus, and the first few times that I went around the roundabout, I actually had to back up in the roundabout because I couldn't get the bus around. And the bus was kind of pernickety in terms of trying to get it into reverse. I couldn't get it into reverse. The first time I was stuck in the roundabout for about 5 minutes before I actually got it into reverse. And it was very embarrassing. Especially when you got 20 or 30 people sitting behind you. So, it takes driving to a whole new level when you're screwing up your driving and you have an audience actually watching you trying to figure out how to get the bus in reverse so you can actually get out of the roundabout in which you're stuck in, because the roundabout had a big sort of flower arrangement in the middle. As well, there were gates to protect pedestrians, and that's why I was jammed up between the garden in the middle of the roundabout and the fence at the edge of the roundabout in Bacchus Marsh in Victoria, Australia. I remember that. It was pretty funny. All right. Sharma, precaution to turn left when big vehicles obstructing the view at the opposite end. Yes, Sharma, excellent. Go onto the community tab and look at the GIF on Jig Jog. Okay, so if you're sitting at an intersection and there's a big vehicle across the other side of the intersection and it's blocking your view, you have to come up in the intersection. You need to move right, stay left of center, but move right, and then bring your wheels back to straight so that you can see past the obstruction on the other side of the intersection. And that's what you need to do. I call it the jig jog. And actually, they're going to coin that after me because I came up with that term. It's the jig jog, where you move left, but stay right of center so you can see past the larger vehicle on the opposite side of the intersection is what you need to do. And you need to, when you move left, bring your steer tires back to straight. And the reason for that is defensive, because if you get rear-ended, you're not going to get driven into oncoming traffic. That's the reason you bring your wheels back to straight. And that's why I call it the jig jog, because you come into the intersection, jog to the left, and then jig back straight. Okay? Jig jog. All right, Dash. It's funny, Dash. My girlfriend's a safe driver, but she has some time management issues. Awesome. Brilliant. Hey, everyone. BD Place, how are you, my friend? Excellent. Maxie, where do truck drivers sleep? Most truck drivers sleep at home unless they're out on long haul. If they're on long haul, there is a sleeper berth on the truck. And actually, they're pretty comfortable in this day and age. I'll tell you that. They're not like they were 20, 30 years ago. Okay, Hall Phase, where's Corey? I have no idea where Corey is. It's very unusual for him. Maybe the time change is messing him up. I don't know. He might be driving transit bus too. He was applying for a position as a transit bus driver. Awesome. Mona, driver training in Abu Dhabi. Excellent. Good morning. How are you, my friend? Awesome. Carrie, thank you for all the quality information you are teaching us. You are most welcome, Carrie. Anything we can do to help you out, and I certainly appreciate all the questions that everybody has. What's my most embarrassing driving moment? Okay, Dash. It seems that most of my embarrassing driving moments were probably in Australia. No, this one's even funnier. It wasn't a driving moment at all. It was more of an apparel mess up. When I was driving truck, I had very long hair. This was back when I still had hair. And I was driving with my girlfriend, and my hair was down, and it was all over the place. And I'm in the South. I'm in Alabama. And so we get to where I'm delivering a load. And, of course, I pull into the yard, and I need to figure out where to back the truck in to the loading dock. And my hair's all down, and my girlfriend's with me, and she's got long hair too, and she's got like a blue scrunchie on the doghouse because it was a cab over, so there's a big thing in the middle between the two seats, and she had a scrunchie. So I took the scrunchie, grabbed some of my hair, not all of my hair, and I pulled it up and put a scrunchie in my hair, and I walked in, asked them where to put the truck to unload it, and then I came back out to the truck, and my girlfriend says to me, you know you're wearing my scrunchie, right? That was an embarrassing moment. Katie, thank you for creating this wonderful video and teaching me a new way to drive. You are most welcome. Maxie, turning left at a red light while stuck in the middle of the intersection during road test. Go forward. Maxie, you have to clear the intersection, so move forward. Okay? Excellent. So, Hall Phase, when do you think motorcycle season, when it will start this year? When motorcycle seasons will start when the snow goes away and it gets warm, like at least 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 15 degrees Celsius. That's a good time for motorcycle weather. All right, so we're going to leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for all of your great questions, for coming and showing up. And if you're watching on the replay, hit that thumbs up button. Everybody hit the thumbs up button, please and thank you. That definitely helps us get the message out to everybody else. And, leave us a comment if you're watching on the replay and have any questions at all. We're more than happy to help you out. And if you passed a road test in the last couple of weeks, congratulations on passing your road test and your newfound freedom. And if you have a road test coming up in the next couple of weeks, good luck on that. And we'll talk to you soon. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.